Ambassador Zekthor of the Valorian Collective had visited 847 worlds in his 3 centuries of diplomatic service. He had negotiated with hive minds, reasoned with plasma beings, and even shared fermented beverages with the crystalline Quarks. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for humanity. The assignment seemed simple enough. Earth had been broadcasting radio signals for over 2 centuries, and the Galactic Council deemed it time for first contact. Zekthor volunteered eagerly, his chest swelling with 4-chambered pride. Humans, the report said, were a young species. Primitive. Barely past their nuclear age. He expected awe, worship perhaps, and a quick integration into the greater galactic community. He landed his shuttle in a designated area outside a place called Colorado Springs. 2 humans waited for him. Protocol officers, assigned by their unified planetary government. Susan Martinez stood at 5'6", her dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, wearing what humans called business casual. Beside her, Evan Chen, slightly taller, adjusted his glasses nervously as the shuttle's landing struts touched Earth. Ambassador Zekthor, Susan said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture they'd been briefed about. Welcome to Earth. A. Zekthor took her hand gingerly with his 3-fingered appendage. The moment their skin touched, something jolted through him warmth. Unexpected and almost aggressive. These creatures ran hot. Their very biology burned with energy. We're honored to be your guides, Evan added, his smile revealing rows of flat teeth punctuated by sharp canines. Predator teeth. Zekthor's research had mentioned it, but seeing them in person triggered ancient prey instincts he thought his species had evolved past. The first day was manageable. They toured government facilities, discussed Earth's geopolitical structure, and sampled what Susan called coffee, a stimulant drug they consumed casually, multiple times daily, to force their bodies beyond natural limitations. You poisoned yourselves into productivity? Zekthor had asked, his translator struggling with the concept. We prefer to think of it as chemical optimization, Evan replied, with a laugh that showed those teeth again. But the second day changed everything. Susan took him to a hospital, a healing center for their injured and ill. Zekthor expected something clinical, efficient, like the medical stations on Valoria. Instead, he found controlled chaos. A human female had just given birth. Zekthor watched in horror as the medical team explained the process. A massive infant forced through an impossibly small opening, often tearing the parent's body in the process. The mortality rate, historically, was staggering. Why do you reproduce this way? Zekthor asked, his voice trembling. This is barbaric. Susan's eyes hardened. Because we survive it. Because life finds a way, even through pain. In another room, they showed him a child no more than 8 solar cycles old, recovering from something called chemotherapy. The treatment, Evan explained, involved poisoning the entire body to kill the poisonous cells within, hoping the healthy tissue could endure what the cancer could not. You poison your children? Zekthor stepped back. You torture them? To save them? We do what we must, Susan said quietly. Would you prefer we let them die? That evening, they took him to what humans called a gym. Zekthor watched in mounting dread as humans systematically damaged their own muscles, tearing fibers intentionally so they would heal stronger. They called it exercise. They celebrated the pain. They competed in it. You wage war on your own bodies, Zekthor whispered. Daily. We call it discipline, Evan said, breathing heavily after running on a machine designed to take him nowhere. We're not born strong. We make ourselves strong. The third day broke him. Susan took him to a memorial, a wall covered in names. Hundreds of thousands of names. This is just one war, she said softly. One conflict among hundreds in our history. Zekthor's translator worked overtime as Susan explained humanity's past. The world wars, the genocides, the atomic weapons dropped on their own cities. Millions dead. Civilizations burned. And yet, humanity continued. You nearly destroyed yourselves, Zekthor said. Multiple times. Yes, Susan agreed. And every time, we chose to rebuild, to try again, to be better. That's not survival instinct, Zekthor realized, his four hearts hammering. That's spite. You survive out of sheer stubbornness. Evan smiled that predator smile again. We prefer to call it determination. That night, Zekthor made his decision. He requested emergency extraction. Before he left, Susan found him at his shuttle. You're afraid of us, she said. Not a question. Zekthor's membranes fluttered his species equivalent of a nervous swallow. Your entire evolution is warfare. You war against nature, against each other, against your own bodies, against reality itself. You are born in violence, raised in struggle, and you call it normal. You poison yourselves to stay awake, tear your muscles to grow strong, and bomb your own cells to cure disease. You are a species that thrives in conditions that would break any other sentient race. Susan stepped closer. And that terrifies you? No. Zekthor admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. What terrifies me is what you'll become when you turn that drive outward, when you bring that human determination to the stars. He paused, meeting her eyes. The galaxy is not ready for humanity. I'm not sure it ever will be. Susan smiled, warm, genuine, and somehow more frightening than any threat. Then, I guess you'll have to get ready. Zekthor fled Earth that night. He reported to the Council, but words failed him. How could he explain what he'd witnessed? A species that weaponized suffering, that transmuted pain into power, that looked at impossible odds and saw merely another challenge to overcome. The Council pressed him for details, for recommendations. Zekthor had only one: quarantine Earth. But deep down, he knew the truth. Humanity wouldn't stay contained. They never did. They were coming to the stars, bringing their impossible resilience, their ridiculous optimism, and their terrifying refusal to accept defeat. The galaxy would never be the same.